Here's why you should just stick with the regular PS5. After that, let's talk about the performance situation updates on Borderlands 4 for PS5, and finally we got some hints as to where Kratos is going next in the big new God of War game that's allegedly coming, and I'm really excited about it. How's it going, everyone? As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. This is PSReady, my channel all about PlayStation. It would really help me out if you subscribe to the channel and set your notifications to all, but let's jump into the first topic here because this is a question I get a lot on my Twitter DMs, on my PlayStation messages, on the comments to this channel, which is whether the PS5 Pro is worth it or not. And now that I've had it for around a year and it's become the main device that I play most of my TV games on when I'm not using my Steam Deck, I have a lot of thoughts about this console, and it's really disappointing to say that largely it's very difficult to recommend this console. And it's annoying because from a hardware perspective, this console is excellent. It's smaller than the launch PS5, but runs games significantly better. It's quiet. It looks nice behind my TV where I can't even see it. Everything works as it should, so why can't I recommend it? Well, it really comes down to this sort of disturbing trend I've noticed with this console that the PS4 Pro just straight up didn't have, and that's the complete lack of support from developers. I mean, so many games are coming out this fall, whether it's Metal Gear Solid Delta, whether it's Dying Light the Beast, whether it's Borderlands 4, whether it's Ghost of Yotei coming out soon, and most of them don't really have any PlayStation 5 Pro support. Now, there is a caveat there in the sense that a lot of these games just generally look and run better on the PS5 Pro, which is good, and it's almost a better option to not have any built-in PS5 Pro support for these games, which is something I'll talk about more in a second. But it's not really that good of a situation when Sony puts out a console that now costs $750 and doesn't even come with a disc drive, and they're really the only publisher that's truly supporting it with stuff like Ghost of Yotei and Death Stranding 2. But Sony has a good reputation when it comes to game performance, at least on console. On PC, it's a different story. They're kind of a mess, but on console, whether you're playing on PS4, whether you're playing on PS4 Pro, PS5, or PS5 Pro, you get a good experience no matter what console you're playing on. So yes, you do get a little bit better of an experience with Death Stranding 2 and newer games from Sony on the PS5 Pro, but it's not like you're getting a bad experience on the regular PlayStation 5. I mean, most of them still target 60 FPS, most of them still target higher resolutions. They just use different upscalers or have a much more consistent higher FPS or a higher base resolution. So like if you compare them right next to each other, you might notice the difference between the PS5 Pro with the first party game and the regular PS5. But if you played the PS5 Pro for 3 hours and then played the PS5 regular for 3 hours, you probably wouldn't notice that big of a difference in the first party stuff. And I can tell you that from experience because I play Gran Turismo 7 mostly on my PlayStation 5 Pro, but when my wife wants to use the TV, I come down here in the basement where my PS5 Slim is, and the game still runs at 60 FPS and looks amazing. I noticed that the ray tracing reflections are gone for about 5 minutes, but once I reacclimate to the game, it's not like that dramatically worse where I don't want to play the game. I have the exact same experience no matter what console I'm on, and that goes for the vast majority of Sony's first party games. And like I just mentioned, most of the third party stuff that's coming out this year doesn't really have a dedicated PS5 Pro version, mainly because if you just put the PS5 version of these games on the PS5 Pro, they're going to run better out of the box because of the PS5 Pro's built-in boost mode. So like it is a benefit to play third-party stuff on the PS5 Pro that doesn't have a built-in patch, but I mean, they're advertising those features like PSSR and everything else, so you should see developers continue to support it. And I can't believe Sony hasn't put more work into making sure their developers are going to these third-party studios and help them figure out how to get the PS5 Pro to run these games as good as possible. I understand why developers aren't sinking time or money into it because A, they're not sinking time or money into actually finishing their games in the first place, and they have a lot of consoles to optimize for these days. You've got the Xbox Series S and X, of course, you've got the regular PS5, you've got the PS5 Pro, you've got PCs, and even some of them are starting to optimize their games for handheld PCs and the Nintendo Switch too. So like if you're looking across the spread of adoption when it comes to consoles, I'd imagine the smallest user base is probably the Steam Deck, and then the second smallest would be the PS5 Pro. Like we know it sold decently, but it's nowhere near the install base of something like the regular PS5 or very soon probably the Nintendo Switch 2. So if you're going to cut out optimization for one console, it kind of makes sense that you'd cut it out for the PS5 Pro, and Sony is not doing their job in picking up the slack. Like they should have a dedicated team within Sony that just goes to big third-party publishers who are releasing big games like Borderlands 4 and does the work for them to get PS5 Pro Pro patches ready, but they're just not. So yeah, while you do get some good performance from the PS5 Pro just because it is that much stronger, you're not getting the boutique support you were promised, and I think that's really on Sony at the end of the day. So like, yes, if you already have one, you're getting a better experience, but if you're looking at buying one, I mean, that's a heavy mark against it if you ask me. Like, I would take that into account, especially considering how much money this thing costs. Like, you should be getting the top-notch premium experience for how much this thing costs, and you're just basically getting the run-of-the-mill experience, which is not good. And just to like back up what I'm saying, two huge games that just came out, Dying Light the Beast and Borderlands 4, neither of them have dedicated PS5 Pro support, and there are other recent games as well, but Borderlands 4 specifically, we'll talk about that more in the second news story, could definitely benefit from some boutique work on PS5 Pro, because no matter what base console you're playing it on, it's impossible to get anywhere near a dedicated 60 FPS experience, and even at 30 FPS, it has major problems. So yeah, even the third-party games that could benefit from dedicated patches don't get them. But then on the other hand, another weird thing that's happening is games that do get dedicated patches have not worked out all that well, if we're being honest. Like Metal Gear Solid Delta had a big controversial problem with the PS5 Pro patch because just like Silent Hill 2 Remake, it stripped out the graphics and performance modes and just gave you the regular PS5's graphics mode with an unlocked frame rate. But because it's Unreal Engine 5, because the game wasn't optimized correctly, because it has forced ray tracing and everything else, it's a completely variable experience, and the crutch of PSSR is not doing a very good job. PSSR can be great. We've seen it in first-party games. Like my aforementioned favorite PS5 game, Gran Turismo 7, it uses PSSR immaculately, but the problem is, when you just half-ass it and throw it in the game and call it a day, we've seen example after example of it not working great, whether it's Jedi Survivor, Star Wars Outlaws, Metal Gear Solid Delta. I mean, the list goes on and on and on of these PSSR supported games that look worse on the PlayStation 5 Pro than they do on the regular PS5 and get roughly the exact same performance because they're forcing you to use the dedicated quality mode from the regular PS5. And there's no option to just use the regular PS5 version. If you're playing Metal Gear Solid Delta on the PS5 Pro, your only option is the PS5 Pro version, so you don't even get the choice. Like on Steam, with Resident Evil 7, 2 Remake, and 3 Remake, they introduced a new version of it when the PS5 version came out that has ray tracing activated all the time. It uses a new graphics API, and it ran dramatically worse for basically everyone. They immediately turned around and gave you the ability to download the old version of the game that worked just fine. If Sony could figure out how to make developers do that for stuff like Metal Gear Solid Delta, it would be a completely different story. But with both Metal Gear and Silent Hill 2, they threw out these bunk PS5 Pro updates and completely moved on from the games, and there's been no updates at all from these studios saying whether or not they're going to fix it, and they haven't yet. So if you have a PS5 Pro, it almost benefits you to cross your fingers that there is no PS5 Pro support, because your best option is going to be using the regular PS5's performance mode, because the PS5 Pro is able to use performance mode and get the 60 FPS that the PS5 can't. And if you just have a regular PS5, you don't have to deal with any of these issues. Like if you're someone who doesn't care about frame rate, or you have a TV with VRR, you can use the performance modes that go between 40 and 60 FPS, and the frame drops will be completely smoothed out by VRR. You might see a little bit of frame droppage that goes below the threshold, but that's rare. And most of the games that have a performance mode still have a good, held together quality image, even though they're using FSR3. And again, you don't get that benefit on the PS5 Pro. You just got to use the quality mode and pray to God that the unlocked frame rate is as close to 60 FPS as possible. But as we've seen time and time again, it's well outside the VRR threshold, so you're going to notice the frame drops even more. So you're paying more for a premium experience, and on the graphic side, you're kind of getting it, but on the frame rate side, which was a huge selling point of the PS5 Pro, you're not getting that yet. And Sony, to be fair, has promised that we are getting this big upgrade to PSSR that's going to improve it to be like FSR4 and pull in some of those features. And as someone who's tested FSR4 extensively on my gaming PC, it's excellent. It holds up to DLSS finally, but it's not here yet, and we don't have a solid release date. We have Q1 of 2026, so that goes until like February of March or next year. And with so many big games coming out that people want to play, like me, I'd rather them just rush out a regular version of FSR4 in the meantime, because no one's going to use PSSR until that's out. Why would you put money and time and work into using the current version of PSSR when Sony's been publicly promising a new version of it for months now? Like, it just doesn't make sense. And then finally, the price, I'm not going to hammer too much. It was too expensive at $700. It's way too expensive at $750. If you trade in your old PS5, if you trade in an old PS4, which I don't necessarily recommend, you could get a better discount, but like, it's just a lot of hassle that you don't really have to deal with. So just from every factor that you would want to use a console, basically the top one being convenience, I think for everyone out there, unless you just really want that high-end performance out of every game you play on the console, the regular PS5 is more than good enough, because so many games were split generation that, you know, we've seen a lot of games come out that just run fine on the regular PS5. And the final reason is the PS6 is right around the corner. So if you're on the regular PS5 already, you're still on the PS4, I feel like you could just hold out for a couple more years, get the PS6 with all the benefits that are going to come from that, and catch up on the backlog you've built up, and you'll get the benefit of paying way less money to do so. I mean, they just haven't created a good enough value proposition for the PS5 Pro, and I've just been noticing so many games coming out and having problems that it's just getting harder and harder to recommend it, which sucks because as someone who has it, I genuinely love playing on it. It's just annoying. But one of the big games that doesn't work well on any PS5 or any console or even my high-end gaming PC is Borderlands 4. I mean, I've been getting some laughs out of reading Randy Pitchford's Twitter. Generational crash out. He goes from like being helpful and supportive, telling people how to run the game better, to just arguing with people relentlessly and poor shaming them for saying, oh, if you want to play our premium experience, you've got to get a high-end gaming PC and use multi-frame generation, which is a terrible feature that they're using as a crutch. And someone showed him the minimum specs for Battlefield 6 and said, look, this game looks better than Borderlands 4. Why does it run so much better? And he said Borderlands 4 is a looter first-person shooter. Dude, any first-person shooter needs to be at 60 FPS bare minimum. I'm sorry, I'm not budging on that. It's been the standard since Doom 1 came out like 30 or 40 years ago. I don't even know how old Doom is, but like 60 FPS for FPS games makes a lot of sense. And the unfortunate thing is, specifically on PS5, it has an issue that none of the other versions have, which is a massive memory leak. If you don't know what that is, basically when you're playing the game and all the shaders get cached and all the effects get cached, it fills up the memory of your console's GPU. And in a normal game, it would clear out once it no longer needs those files. But in some games like Borderlands 4, those files stay there forever. And as you play, the performance gets worse and worse and worse. Like you can see it go from 60 FPS to 50 to 40 to 30 until it's an absolute slideshow. And Randy Pitchford's big recommendation, restart the game once an hour. And if you're playing a big open world game like Borderlands 4, you're not going to want to restart the game once an hour, beyond the fact that that shouldn't be a suggestion in the first place. I think Randy Pitchford needs to take a break from Twitter and get in his studio and start coding games again, instead of sitting in his executive office complaining about people who say, hey, this game doesn't run well, it was $70, I paid for the $100 version. He should be on his hands and knees begging people not to refund it, instead of telling them, hey, if you don't like the performance, refund it. Fix your game, man. Like, there's no other solution other than that. Everyone's telling you that the game is rushed and unfinished, and it's a big achievement to have a game that performs worse than other Unreal Engine 5 games, because that engine is an absolute play. So yeah, I just wanted to give you an update on the performance. You're just gonna have to wait a little bit, but you know, set it to quality mode. It seems to work a little bit better at 30 FPS than the unlocked version, which goes between 30 and 60. Hopefully we don't have to wait long for this game to be optimized. And looking back at Borderlands 2 and 3 and Wonderlands, they all launched rough and they were fixed pretty quickly. So fingers crossed on this one. And that brings me to the last news story here, which is a new update on the next God of War. So everyone assumed that Cory Barlog was working on a big space game, but it turns out that ever since God of War 2018, the people on his team at Santa Monica Studio have been working on God of War 3, with God of War Ragnarok being kind of an interstitial game, which is crazy because in my opinion, it improved on almost everything from God of War 2018. If you don't want the location spoiled, I guess you can click away from the video, but it's been teased in both of those games and it's going to be Egypt. The latest update we have is coming from Tom Henderson, who seems to know a lot about this game because I'm pretty sure he leaked not only the 2.5D God of War that's going to take place in Greece, he also leaked the location for this game, so I hope he's right. He's saying that the new weapon Kratos is going to have access to, in addition to the Leviathan axe and the Blades of Chaos and the spear, is a Egyptian sword, so basically a scimitar. I hope we still get access to the spear and the Leviathan axe because, you know, scimitars are cool, but they're small, they're quick, like they're not really as badass and powerful as what you get out of the Leviathan axe. And even though we've had 2 games with it being the main weapon, I'd be fine with it being the side weapon and the scimitar being the like main traversal weapon. But I don't want to give up the Leviathan axe just yet. If they handle it like God of War 2018, where you use the Leviathan axe or now the scimitar for like the first half of the game, and then you unlock the older weapons like the Blades of Chaos as you move on, I think that'd be fine. But I don't think they should get rid of the Leviathan axe even if they are moving to Egypt. The one thing that does kind of bum me out is another rumor we've heard is that Kratos is going to split his time like Spider-Man and Miles Morales with like a new Egyptian god, which like that's fine. I don't know. The whole point of Kratos is that he kills every god in every timeline. So like a new one coming in and being your friend character, I don't know why this is the new trend where like every new game where you get a cool badass character like Kratos, you have to deal with an annoying ass friend character, and then there's a big argument online about whether or not they should have been there. Like, I liked where Atreus' story ended up. I did not like his gameplay sections in God of War Ragnarok. I'm fine with just playing as Kratos, and at this point, playing as a side character for half the game is sort of played out. Like, I don't know a single person out there who loves that Mary Jane in Spider-Man 2 was playable for a big portion of the game, and you had this immersion breaking stuff like these characters that would take 4 or 5 full power punches from Spider-Man, take 1 hit from Mary Jane kicking a car door open to be knocked out. I just hate that immersion breaking stuff, so hopefully that rumor doesn't come true. Anyway guys, that's all I've got for you in today's video. As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, and shape on.